Good morning, North Richland Democrats. Arlene, if you could give our introduction.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the quarterly meeting of the North Richland Democrats. My name is Arlene Andrews. I'm the co-chair, and it's my great pleasure to introduce the other co-chair, Ramona Brown, who has recently assumed the position, and we'll hear some more from her in a few minutes. And to give a great shout out and thank you to Deaska Spencer, who is our former co-chair, and she's with us today. She has been elected chairwoman of the Richland County Democratic Party, and we have pledged our support to her for the countywide party. The North Richland Democrats, for those of you who may not be familiar with our organization, is a coalition of active Democrats who are involved in getting out the vote in the northern area of Richland County that borders the I-77 corridor. We represent about 20 precincts, and we have some pretty lively discussions and are looking forward to very soon meeting in person again. And we'll hear more about that from Ramona in a few minutes. The focus of our meeting today is on affordable housing, and we have an excellent panel that we'll be hearing from shortly. But first, I'm going to turn things over to our co-chair, Ramona Brown. And Ramona, if you could just go over with us some of the things that we have coming up for North Richland Democrats.
Awesome. Thank you, Arlene. Once again, welcome North Richland Dems. For those of you who may have been present at our Leadership Circle meeting, you may have some of the dates on your calendar already. For those of you who were not, please get out your pen and pencil or refer to the Facebook page where this calendar is posted. Once again, happy Black History Month. And welcome to our February quarterly meeting. Our next meeting will be our precinct reorg meeting. Please save the date for March 5th. This is going to be an extremely important meeting because it will set the stage for our main action this year, which is to get out the vote. Tell your friends, tell your families, tell your neighbors to show up at this precinct reorg meeting. This is essential so that we have as many hands at the table as possible. I like to say this phrase: many hands makes the work light. So the more folks we have show up at the March 5th meeting, the better. And then in April will be our county convention. It's actually March 26th, excuse me, the March-April timeline, but it will be on March the 26th. Be sure to be there. It is essential for us to vote on certain things concerning the Richland County Democratic Party. And once again, it's essential for us to plan our steps going forward. After that, in May, on May 21st, 2022, we will be having our May quarterly meeting. That also will be a day in which we will have a STEM event. The location is currently pending. It's tentatively scheduled for Rehoboth Baptist Church. It is a family hands-on event. Where we also will use it as an opportunity to get out the vote. And then our June-July timeframe for get out the vote, we have primary elections coming up June 14th. The polls will be open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. It is essential that we gain momentum between now and then because midterm elections are critical for just about every facet of our life here in Richland County. The August, September, October timeframe. In September will be our very next quarterly meeting. That will be September 24th. And we will also have debate watch parties And the general election for midterm elections will be November the 8th, 2022. So I hope you all will share this calendar with friends, families, and neighbors, and be prepared to get out the vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Ramona. And now I'm going to turn things back over to Diaska Spencer in her role as chair of the Richland County Democratic Party. She's actually serving two roles for us today. She's helping to monitor the meeting and moderate the panel. But let's hear from her as county party chair. What's happening, Diaska?
Thank you so much for that, Arlene. And thank you to all of you. I thank the North Richland Democrats and especially the greater Richland County Democratic Party for all the work that has been done and for the confidence that has been bestowed upon me to serve as leader of this party at such a critical time. Before I get into formal remarks as chairwoman, I do want to thank the North Richland Democrats team. You all are an amazing team. Arlene Andrews and Ramona Brown, both of which are on this call with me today, the hours that you spend working tirelessly to organize, to plan, to bring programming to not only the North Richland precincts, but to Richland County as a whole, it's amazing. And I'm so grateful for the work that North Richland is doing, as well as the work of our other regional groups who continue to outperform. It was a pleasure of mine to attend the Northeast Democrats meeting on last week. But again, kudos to Arlene Andrews, Ramona Brown, Harriet Williams, Karen Bobrow, Sharon Williams, and Carol Robinson for steering and guiding the 20 precincts that form the North Richland Democrats. So by way of a bit of an introduction and background, I have been serving as chairwoman of this body now for 35 days. And during this time, this team and multiple teams across the county have worked very hard to plan reorganization, which is coming up on March 5th, 2022, as Ramona indicated. Reorganization is a very important time. It's our opportunity to elect precinct level leaders that will carry us through the upcoming elections. And this year is a very important year because it's a gubernatorial election year. We need officers, strong officers, to be elected at the 149 precincts that make up Richland County. When we elect officers that are strong, that will then go out to their local homeowners associations and recruit volunteers, over the summer, we will be able to knock more doors than ever, send out more postcards than ever, make more phone calls than ever. But it takes leadership. It takes strong leadership at each of the 149 precincts. So this is my call to you all. Please make sure that you attend reorganization on March 5th. We also have a contactless Google form option for those of you who are still fearful of COVID and not quite ready to show up to an in-person event. I also want to remind you all that the work that we do requires your support in manpower and labor, but also your support in dollars. So if you are not already a True Blue member, I encourage you to go ahead and sign up to make a monthly donation to support this cause and to continue advancing democracy. We also invite you to the kickoff fundraiser on March 25th, 2022. It will be a fantastic evening. Our executive director, Deborah Lloyd, has been working so hard with so many community members to bring fantastic options like an open bar and really good food and excellent speakers. So buy your tickets for the fundraiser, and I'll see you on March 26th at 9 a.m. at Columbia College, because we're going to have a fantastic convention and we're going to really press forward and we're going to preserve this democracy that we all hold so dear. I do want to, as a bit of education, inform you that you can sign up today for reorganization so that you don't forget by going to www.north www.mobilize.us/Richland County Democrats. Again, the link is www.mobilize.us/Richland County Democrats. I hope you all will sign up, and I hope to see you in leadership, and I look forward to working with you as your chair. Again, I do, before I yield the floor back, I do want to recognize, and I ask that you all, because I just got this news, I ask that you guys join me in a 1 minute moment of silence for William Bolton. He worked tirelessly for this party, and he served as our parliamentarian. And I just learned that we lost William Bolton in his fight, and he has gone on to be with the Lord. So please join me as a point of privilege I'm making. I'm sure Ramona and Arlene will allow it. I'd like for us to all just say a little prayer and sit in silence for him. Thank you all for that. And Arlene, that is my report.
Thank you, Diaska. Thank you for your leadership and getting us inspired to take the next steps as we develop precinct leaders for this Get Out the Vote effort this year. We love to hear from candidates who are running for office. This, as you know, is a critical year. There's so many offices that are going to be open for election. And we have invited a couple of speakers, but it turns out Saturday morning is a very busy meeting for busy time for candidates. But one of our more critical races, of course, is the congressional seat for District 2. And Diaska, can you share with us what the Democratic candidate or a Democratic candidate running for that office has offered to us?
I will.
There's no sound so far.
Who we're seeing is Judd Larkins, who's running for congressional seat number 2. Is there a way to start it over with sound, Diaska?
Might have to unshare and make sure the sound is checked.
I will.
Why don't we try to do that one later? Okay. And I'll take a moment to, but Judd Larkins is running for congressional District 2, and he made a video just for our group. but you can find him on the internet, of course. And I encourage you to go to his website and watch the video he has there. He has some very ambitious, enthusiastic changes that he's proposing for as a member of Congress representing the Midlands area. But it's now my pleasure to introduce our panel. So Diaska, can we have the panelists for the affordable housing panel come on board? So let me thank you all, first of all, for being here, for taking time this morning. Probably of all the issues that we've heard about in the last few months, and we've conducted an issues survey in the Midlands, and more we're hearing about the needs of people from really all walks of life who are concerned about affordable housing. Of course, our particular concern is for people who are in very low income groups and people who are trying to build assets, young people in particular, so that they have a solid base as they move forward with their lives. And we have an amazing panel this morning. I'm very pleased to welcome Sue Berkowitz, who is director of the South Carolina Appleseed Legal Justice Center, and just an extraordinary advocate on behalf of people who live with very low income across the state. And she's just been a real, just a pioneer and an advocate on so many issues, and we're grateful for her presence. Tiffany Santagati is from Greenville, and thank you for coming to talk to us in Richland County. She is the Vice President of Operations for the Greenville Housing Fund. I think I got your title correctly, Tiffany. And I have the great pleasure of serving with her. She chairs the State Children's Trust Board as well. So, but she has a real compassionate heart, and has in the past year started devoting her time to the development of affordable housing in the Greenville area. And she's going to share with us some of the things that they're doing there. Reverend James Woodley is with us today from the group More Justice. If you follow the media in the Midlands, you hear about what More Justice is doing. He's going to tell us more about the organization, but also about that they're focusing on affordable housing as one of their chief platforms for a coalition of people of faith who are concerned about those who need housing. And then our dear friend and councilwoman Gretchen Barron, known to most of us because she's from our neighborhoods, and is just here, there, everywhere with her advocacy. And she has agreed to be on the panel to talk about what Richland County is thinking about doing in order to address the affordable housing issue. Diaska Spencer has agreed to moderate our panel, and I'm going to turn things over to her. I'm going to mute my video because I'm going to monitor the chat, and I would invite all of you to, all of you who are watching, that if you have a question for the panelists, please submit it in the chat. I'll be monitoring that. And after the panelists have completed speaking, then we'll have a little bit of time for Q&A. So please enter those questions into the chat. Thank you. And thank you, Diaska.
Thank you, Arlene. And thank you for introducing our panelists. Before we begin today's panel, I do want to let you all know, as a bit of foundational information, we're just going to start with one-on-ones and collect information from each of you, and then we will open it up to a more collaborative panel style. Before we begin, as a point of just reference, I serve as a lawyer, so I come into contact with the public with some frequency. And there was this one young lady that I learned recently was looking for housing. And I directed her to some townhomes for her and her daughters that I stayed in when I was a student at USC. And when I stayed there, my deposit was $599, and my monthly rent was $599. Well, needless to say, she came back to my office and she told me, Diaska, I cannot afford that townhome. She said the rent is anywhere from $1,250 to $1,500. So when Arlene asked me to moderate this panel, with that information in mind, I was just floored. And we've got to figure this out in Richland County. So I thank you all for agreeing to to be here today. I'd like to start with Sue, Director of the South Carolina Appleseed Legal Justice Center. My first question to you, Sue, is please define for me affordable housing and what that means for working families, like the young lady who I was trying to help.
Well, first, thanks so much for asking me to be here. It's such a critical topic, and really thank you for laying the groundwork for me to be able to talk about this. I think you really highlighted exactly what the issue is. The people much smarter than me have come up with calculations to determine that really for housing to be affordable for most families, people shouldn't be paying more than 30% of their income for where they live. And it's not just for the rent or the mortgage itself, it really is for housing costs, which often, we think about $1,200 and then how much does it cost for the electricity and the heat and the air conditioning and everything. And so fair market housing pretty much in South Carolina is about $940. That's the average. Now it's looking at places like Charleston and Hilton Head and Beaufort, and then going into some of the more rural areas where it may be a little less, but it's still quite pricey for folks. And when you think about what does that take to be able to afford, if we just said $940 for a working family, we call it a housing wage, and a housing wage would be, over $18 an hour. Now, for
Sue, did I lose you?
wage where they live, or for the circumstances in their lives, and for their maybe for what their opportunities and privileges have been and their skills. So what we're talking about is many people in our state spending over 50% of their income just to be able to have a safe place to live. And well, I take that back. It doesn't necessarily mean it's safe, meaning habitable and healthy, just to have a place to live. And so then we see that economic strain, and it just is an avalanche for everything else that happens in people's lives. And if employment isn't as secure as we would like it to be, which we know we're in a right to work for less state, then, one catastrophe, one misstep could mean you losing your job, then losing your housing, and then it all falls apart.
Wow, Sue, I mean, you've shared a lot with us, and it's really unacceptable that we have working families, single mothers, single fathers, individuals who have two-parent homes and still struggling and spending 50% or more of their income for housing. That just seems wayward and unfair. Would you discuss some of the work you've done in the area of affordable housing?
Well, and I should say it's not just me. My office, has other lawyers and advocates that are also involved. But some of the work that we've done over the years is working to get the South Carolina State Housing Trust Fund secured. Also trying to have a trust fund in Columbia, which there is one, but it's not what is needed to be, not something as forward thinking as what we now see in Greenville. We work on making sure that landlord tenant laws are keeping them at the minimum that they are, looking to see how do we have as a matter of right for tenants to have representation when they go to court. When the housing crisis was going on 10 years ago, we seem to have one every 10 years. And we knew that, when Wall Street was having their party on our dime and making loans to people and most of them with targeting communities of color with very high interest rates and sometimes often very predatory practices, we did a lot of work to get a High Cost and Consumer Home Loan Act enacted here in South Carolina. But then we did some work to try to see when money was coming back to the state. We wanted to see, and this is really critical, both help for representation for people who are facing foreclosure, but also money to go into tax credits so more affordable housing could be built. And that unfortunately was not a priority for our state legislature. They wanted Commerce to take that money and use it for a slush fund. And we worked really hard to turn that around to make that happen. And it was one of the saddest moments of my life when we lost all of that by one vote in the state budget, because there was not the foresight and understanding by legislators, and I will say on both sides of the aisle, of why this was critical and important. So those are just some examples of the work that we've done to try to move affordable housing as an issue forward, not including what we've been doing most recently with the Affordable Housing Task Force and some other things that we've been doing with our national partners.
Okay, well, Sue, you talked about Greenville and the progress that you all are making there in pushing for affordable housing. What are the primary obstacles to affordable housing in the Midlands? Like the young lady who came to me who has 2 young daughters. Why is it that she can't find affordable housing here?
Well, a couple reasons. One, there isn't enough affordable housing stock here in the Midlands area. And we have got to both, and it's not just the Midlands that can solve it on its own, but I'm so, so grateful for the focus and attention that now our county council is putting on this. But it takes a partnership with both the state and local government to make affordable housing and opportunities available. There was legislation that was passed not too long ago that was going to allow for tax credits. And as soon as efforts to afford themselves the availability of these tax credits, suddenly on a state level, there was this backing away from it and saying, oh no, there's too many companies that want to build affordable housing and take advantage of these tax credits. And what there hasn't been is the focus on the reason they're willing to take advantage of this is because there's such a need and they want to fill that need. And the other piece I will talk about is, and this is not for the Midlands, but we're seeing in other areas, and I don't want to see this happening in the Midlands, is the NIMBY concept, not in my backyard, where things are being proposed, housing is being proposed, and people of privilege come forward and say, well, wait a minute, I don't want affordable housing in my neighborhood, because they're not welcoming, they're not understanding about how important that is and how we need to be looking at our counties and our neighborhoods and where we live and where we work and where we do everything as a welcoming place.
Wow, I appreciate your comments today and your reference to public policy and how it can potentially help if we could get some of these bills passed in our legislature. And the NIMBY concept, I think I first heard that as a student at Spelman College, because I have a majored in political science. I finished at USC, but that NIMBY, not in my backyard, and local citizens stepping up to stop some of the progress, I think it requires an education. And I think organizations like the Richland County Democratic Party can sort of help explain why it helps. Because if we create affordable housing for people that then move to communities, they then support local businesses, which then help boost the economy to allow for us to grow, and the infrastructure will grow. So it's all related. We're all interconnected.
Absolutely.
So thank you for that.
My pleasure. Yes.
I'm going to go to Tiffany Santagati, and I just really enjoy saying her last name. What a strong name. Tiffany Santagati is the Vice President of Operations with the Greenville Housing Fund. And Greenville seems to be doing well these days, Tiffany. So please tell us your organization's mission and strategies for the Greenville Housing Fund.
Well, the mission is simple. I mean, essentially, we just want to ensure that Greenville achieves affordable housing solutions for everybody, especially as we continue to grow and our economy is thriving. We need to ensure that everyone's included in that. And then housing is first. And so we recognize that. And way we do it is really, we have a lot of support throughout the community. I will say Greenville is a huge philanthropic community, and we come together to solve problems. And so we come together and make decisions. And so one thing we do is we have a coalition of 55 different organizations that is focused on affordable housing. And then we also work with the government, so the county and the city, to come up with different tools that we could use to, provide assistance for affordable housing. We ourselves will acquire affordable housing and try to preserve it. But then we work with other developers. So even if they're not 100% affordable housing, even if you're 20%, we still want to work with you to ensure that you have affordable housing throughout Greenville. And so we look at the city and the county to ensure that happens.
So Tiffany, with this affordable housing that you all, with your partners, is trying to create in Greenville, are you all helping people with their credit so that they could then buy these houses? Or are folks still renting these affordable houses? I'm just curious about what you're doing.
Yeah, so we actually produce and preserve affordable housing. We don't necessarily put individuals in them. So we focus a lot on multifamily units, in which that traditionally is renter. But that doesn't mean we don't do home ownership at all. One of the programs that we have is called our Home HOP program, where we basically focus on preserving current housing. And so in that program, we have people who cannot afford to fix up their house. And so we provide grants so that they can. And so we don't necessarily work individually with people who've with their credit or that type of thing, as there's so many other agencies in Greenville that do that work. But what we do is focus on how can we develop and produce and preserve those units so that we have enough of them. I think Sue mentioned that, we just don't have enough, housing. And so that's what kind of brings the housing affordability. That's why we struggle. And so our goal is just to produce as much as we can so that it kind of keeps those rental prices low.
Okay, so you're sort of on the development side, but there's that other piece to all of this, and I'm sure we'll get into that a bit more. But I often worry about sometimes homeowners or prospective home buyers know that they've been in an apartment for too long and that they're ready to buy. But then once they are ready to buy, the banks tell them, well, hold on, I don't really trust your credit history, right? I'll loan you the money for the house, but I'm going to loan it to you with an adjustable rate mortgage. And I think Sue touched on this. Well, that means that the mortgage is going to change. That means that they're going to adjust the monthly payment, which again, I think there's multiple paths. And again, it's that synergy that's going to help the citizens of Greenville and Columbia actually purchase affordable, sustainable housing that they can stay in and afford for a lifetime. What steps should other counties take, Tiffany, to institute affordable housing in their communities like Greenville is doing?
Yeah, so I agree with you. And I do want to say I used to be a banker before coming to the Greenville Housing Fund. I spent my majority of my career in banking. And so when you think about people getting loans and understanding, I think that's the biggest thing is you have to understand the products that you're getting. And that's why financial literacy is so crucial. And that you have to make sure that people understand that when they take on a house, they're not just taking on that one payment. They're taking on all the other things that go with it. Sue kind of mentioned your housing cost is, not just your mortgage payment or your rent payment, but it's everything else. And so a lot of times people don't realize that until they get into the house, and then they can get themselves in trouble. As far as strategies, I think one of the most important things is to have consensus in the community. I think that's one of the biggest things and strengths that we have in Greenville is we work together really well. And so when the Greenville Housing Fund was initially started, although we had a lot of support from our government agencies, we also had a lot of support from the philanthropic communities and developers. And so it wasn't just one group making this decision. It was literally a, huge group of stakeholders in our community that came together and said, we see a problem, how can we fix it? And so that's where I would recommend that counties and cities start, is just bringing some major stakeholders together and determining how can we best make this work for this community. Because I will say affordable housing is going to look different in every community. So what works in Greenville may not work in Richland County. It may not work in Columbia. But that's why it's important to have people who are invested and who have resources in that community to help make those decisions.
Stephanie, thank you so much. I really appreciate the steps that you've outlined, the work you're doing in Greenville. I think if each of us did our part, you referenced coalition building to start. You talked a lot about financial literacy and multiple stakeholders. I think we've got to remember in Columbia, in Richland County, that we're still all connected. We all live here. So the onus is not just on one of us, it's on all of us to work together and collaborate to ensure that some of these dilapidated and rundown buildings and closed buildings are filled with new entrepreneurs and folks that are interested and willing to serve the local community and then subsequently grow, I hope. So thank you, Tiffany. Thank you for that. At this time, I'm going to turn to the Reverend James C. Woodland and the work that he does with More Justice, an organization that is so strong here. So many committed Democrats work with you all, Pastor Woodley. I'd like to just ask you to just lay a foundation for us. Describe your work with More Justice and what More Justice does.
Thank you, and good morning to the North Richland Democrats and all that are participating, to watching and listening today. Surely I'm honored to be here with these other distinguished panelists, Sue Berkowitz, Tiffany Zantagati, I want to make sure I made that right, Councilwoman Gretchen Barron, and of course to our moderator. We are grateful to be here. I'm elated to talk to you about More Justice. I currently serve as an at-large executive board member on More Justice. I've been a part of it now since its inception. But More Justice is a direct action, and I want to be clear, it's not a direct service, but it's a direct action network of faith-based congregations. Currently, there are 33 congregations across the Midlands that are part of More Justice, which are culturally, economically, racially, and geographically and religiously diverse. And our main purpose is to come together to fulfill what we state is our spiritual mandate. It comes from Micah 6:8, which tells us that what does the Lord require of us? To love mercy, to do justice, and to walk humbly before our God. And in doing so, to make the Central Midlands area a more just place for all of us to live in. It was just stated, we all have investments in this because we all live in this community, and we're all vested in the betterment of all humankind to be able to live in such a way that we can be in unison. And so to do that, we do that by starting with the listening process for all of our congregations and those who would like to be a part of our network membership, by asking one simple question: what keeps you up at night? And when we do that, we get a lot of feedback, and these member congregations work together to empower marginalized people and act powerfully to address these serious community-wide problems through our direct action. And we accomplish this by identifying a problem, doing the research on it, and educating the public and publicly addressing the root causes of and solutions to poverty and injustice in our communities. So with that said, More Justice is unique in the way that we approach this. We do our best to try to work alongside of the local and state government agencies, to work alongside them to help to bring accountability to these various system issues that are causing suffering and inequities and injustice in our community.
Pastor Woodley, it sounds like at the root of what you do, it's the intersection of spiritual growth, spiritual calling, and just really pulling in and helping our brother, our community. So thank you for that. Would you talk a little bit about some of what the research that you all have done in with respect to affordable housing? Would you talk about that research and what that research has revealed here in Richland County?
Yeah, thank you again. Yeah, as was stated by my fellow panelists, Tiffany and Sue Berkowitz, we do have an issue in the state of South Carolina, and particularly in this Richland County area of what we consider affordable housing issues. And so our research is available to as it is to any of us, where we first start off with various committees to address these issues, and then we look at the research that's provided through HUD, and we look at the information that's provided through the other entities. Of course, we realized as of January 2020, South Carolina had the state had an estimated over 4,200 experiencing what we consider homelessness. And I mean, you can define homelessness in so many different ways. I think the categories were brought out, but affordable housing is a part of that. And that's being reported all the time by HUD. And in the city alone, there are as many as over 16,000 families in need of affordable housing, but also in need of affordable housing. And of course, according to the South Carolina Council of Homelessness, even as far back as 2019, Richland County had the highest number of homeless citizens in the state of South Carolina, with over 800 individuals, and that was as of April 2020. And so what we ultimately learned is the Midlands could benefit greatly from having a affordable housing trust fund here. We have also had discussions with other organizations, we stated already, HUD, as well as Family Promise of the Midlands, which, by the way, is many of our member churches are part of as well, which is a transitional home that helps families in crisis to find adequate living and residences. And then lastly, one of the things that's really unique to our organization is we listen to stories, if you will, testimonies of families in our member churches who've had to make some very hard decisions on where to live. I think it was mentioned earlier, is what's, it's not just what's habitual or what's habitable, but it's what's healthy. Where can I live? Through these testimonies of individuals. And some of them have had to make some really hard decisions on where to live, the quality of living that they're willing to endure, as well as the hierarchy of what's important, bare necessities of life or over dwelling places or affordable residences. So through those areas of research, the statistical part of it, the testimonial part of it, and the partnership with other entities and organizations that also see homelessness and affordable housing as a very serious issue.
Pastor Woodley, I heard you say that you all listen to testimonies, and I'm sure you've heard a lot. In advance of today's meeting in preparation for it, Arlene had a chance to sit down with a recent high school graduate who had lived at Epworth Children's Home. And we learned that her transition through Arlene's interview has just been tough. She has slept in her vehicle. And this is a recent high school graduate, who's unable, she's working, she has a car, but she cannot afford her own apartment. And those kinds of things really they should concern us all. And it sounds like you're saying that if Richland County had an affordable housing trust fund, it could sort of stand in the gap for people like the young lady that Arlene interviewed. So what, if anything, do you know about efforts to create such a fund?
Yeah, thank you. A great question. At the present moment, I would say this is the most important thing that More Justice Initiative is we currently have been in dialogue with County Council to establish an ordinance that will put into action an affordable housing trust fund for Richland County. It's in their purview to be able to do that. We've been in discussion with them. Many of the council members have expressed an interest along with that initiative to establish this affordable housing trust fund. And so that when we get this ordinance established, then we can then inquire about seed monies to set aside that will begin to establish the housing trust fund, much like our community in Greenville and other cities. And I want to be clear here, we're not talking about, I think sometimes when we talk about homelessness or affordable housing, we mix the two together. So we're talking, just as you stated, this young lady is sleeping in her car, and some people are employed and they have funds coming in on a regular basis. It's just not enough income coming in to meet the vast issues that are addressed in terms of the cost. So we're not talking about Section 8. We're looking at a proven model that is being done across 800 other communities that have been able to accomplish this in their cities, much like Greenville, our neighbors to the north of us. And so we're really trying our best to push this initiative through with the county, and hopefully and prayerfully they'll be able to put this initiative, establish an ordinance that will help us to help the county to start this affordable housing trust fund here in Richland County. I think it was mentioned also that there is obviously there is a housing trust fund already established, but it's not meeting the needs of what we desire. And so we want to make sure that we can do this.
What a wonderful segue to Councilwoman Barron, who will speak in just a moment. I do have one additional question for you, Pastor Woodley, before we talk with an esteemed member of our Richland County Council. What can citizens do to help Gretchen, to help council members get the buy-in? What can we do to promote policies that will expand the trust fund and expand affordable housing efforts? Where do we need to sit in other words?
Yeah, great. First, more discussions like this are needed. More individuals need to bring awareness to the need for affordable housing in the county. Secondly, I would say we need to attend our county council meetings, state and local meetings to address the issues of affordable housing, to continue the dialogue and emphasize the need to establish this particular ordinance. Third, and of course, my shameless plug is, be a part of initiatives like More Justice, at least attend some of these action meetings. We have one scheduled for April 4th at 6 p.m. at the Convention Center. We welcome all that are listening. You can get on our webpage at www.morejusticecolumbia.org. And the last thing I would say, if you can't invest in a cause, all of us on this panel are concerned about the plight of men, women, boys, and girls. Our students suffer when they don't have affordable housing. It's hard for them to go to school and concentrate when they're not sure where they're going to be resting their heads at night. So it's really a trickle down effect of individuals across the Midlands who are in the margins of affordable housing. And so I would hope that we could do that. Again, we want to work alongside of our local and state government officials so that we can get this done. So thank you so much. I hope that was helpful to all of you.
Very helpful indeed. And I ask that you stay on, Pastor Woodley. We are going to take questions after we've spoken with our esteemed Councilwoman Gretchen Barron, my Councilwoman. She is a woman who needs no introduction. However, I've got to say that I met Gretchen Barron a couple of years ago, and she came to multiple quarterly meetings that were hosted by this very group, and she's always been a boots on the ground leader. So Gretchen, thank you so much for agreeing to be with us today, for standing in the truth that Richland County, we have a problem here. There's a problem, and the cure does not rest solely on your shoulders, but we realize that you're one of those people that can talk to your colleagues and talk to those at the State House and really push to get a fund properly funded. So as a county councilwoman, what issues do you think are impacting affordable housing the most in this community?
Well, good morning, Madam Chair, of the Richland County Democratic Party. Congratulations to you and to all my fellow Democrats. It's an honor to be here today to talk about something that initially I became passionate about as a resident and as a citizen. And I learned very quickly as an elected official when I took a meeting with a group called More Justice that I needed to shift my passion from wanting to get people in houses, but to figure out how we can take this money and take local government and make sure that we take actions to that. And what we know is in Richland County is one of the fastest growing counties here. And more specifically, the Northeast community, we are the fastest pool of individuals are even in Richland County alone. So when we look at that, we have to take into consideration that there's a supply and demand. Someone talked about it earlier. We don't have the inventory in place. So because we don't have the inventory in place, now it creates and wreaks havoc all across the board. You know, as a council member, we spend a lot of time talking about economic development and bringing businesses in and bringing these jobs in. But then when we talk about bringing jobs in and bringing these businesses in, the first question is, where are the people going to live? Where are they going to live? And so we in my district, we have wonderful subdivisions being built right now, but they don't reflect what we like to call workforce housing. They don't reflect that. So we're bringing jobs in where people make about $15 an hour, but yet these homes that are being built are not affordable to them. So here we still have, we're bringing people all across the country into Richland County. And then we're also giving individuals here in Richland County an opportunity to advance, but they still need somewhere to live. So my job as a council member is really has become one of those things where when we take audience with developers, now what I'm doing is saying, hey, let's just don't build houses. What are these houses that we're building? Who can live in them? Who can afford them? Are they attainable? Are they achievable? Because we know that we heard several months and we keep hearing it, the housing authority even is having a challenge with being able to place those who have housing vouchers even somewhere to live. So if that is the case, and then we're talking about individuals who work every day and they have sound income, but just not enough to meet the daily needs of housing, that's a challenge for us. And it's one of my challenges to make sure that my colleagues understand that it's a big world out here, and it's not just about District 7, as I like to say. It's District 7 elected me, but I serve Richland County. And so as we serve Richland County, we've got to make sure those resources are out there.
Gretchen, I really appreciate your remarks about what's happening in the Northeast area in North Richland County. You know, as someone who lives in North Richland, and we've lived there since 2016, you're right. Like, there's lots of houses there that are $300,000 plus, but those houses are beyond the reach of most residents of Richland County. So the next question is about barriers. So what barriers are there to affordable housing? It sounds like one of the barriers is definitely income. And what other barriers are there to being able to purchase or buy houses, or even in this case, Gretchen, rent houses or rent places to live?
Yeah. So one of the fellow panelists made mention that we don't have NIMBY in Richland County. I would venture to say, as a council member, that is not accurate. We do have NIMBY. We do have NIMBY here in Richland County, and I see it. One of the pledges that I took when I came on the council, if you wanted to build anything, or if anything had to be rezoned in my district, you had to have an audience with the citizens of Richland County District 7. What that meant was you may see where I host town hall meetings. Those town hall meetings are specifically where developers can come in and say, hey, we want to rezone this parcel of land to do X, Y, and Z. This is what we're looking to do. And then the citizens now can ask questions of that developer. I think it's very important that developers know who already lives here and how this development could impact the lives of people. So one of the things that I heard from many of our citizens is that I don't want that. I don't want that in my backyard. And we've had that conversation with two developers in a public forum where they were talking about bringing workforce housing. I call them 2x2s, and that's apartments that have 2 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. And the first thing I say when I talk to them one-on-one before we even do a town hall is, how much is this going to cost? How much is this going to cost? Okay. And so who is your target? It's important to know that. And we'll hear, oh, it's affordable housing. Oh, I don't want that over here off of Hardscrabble Road, or I don't want this, off of Wilson Boulevard. And I love to say, it's not yours to give. It's not yours to give to say that you can't have it the way you want it in your backyard, because we have a group of people who need a place to live. And you might not want them in your subdivision, but there needs to be some connectivity as we drive through Richland County. And we don't have that connectivity because we have the big, beautiful subdivisions. Then we hear crickets where there's nothing there. And then we have dilapidated houses and what we call blight, the buildings that are run down. And now, then when someone comes in and says, we want affordable housing. So my challenge is to many of you that are listening, let's change the stigma of affordable housing. And this is workforce housing, which means that these individuals go to work. And, I grew up in humble beginnings, but had not been for the grace of God, I might have needed some workforce housing. I had an opportunity. And many people we have to really, and I don't want to get on my soapbox, but we have to take people's story and note that for me, that's how I govern. What I hear in the streets, now I need to make sure that it gets government support, which is the last thing. We got to have government support and hold people accountable for what we elected them to do.
Councilwoman, you are on your soapbox and you are killing it. So stay on the soapbox. So here's what I'll say in response to your comments. I'm going to read a quote. It is hard to argue that housing is not a fundamental human need. Decent, affordable housing should be a basic right for everybody in this country. The reason is simple. Without stable shelter, everything else falls apart. And I think that quote just captures the moment. It captures what's happening all around Richland County. And I'm concerned that some residents of Richland County, specifically in our neck of the woods, because we live kind of close to each other, Gretchen, are saying not in my backyard. I realize that we all need to understand that we're connected. And I think other people need to realize that as well. You're not going to have really good restaurants to go to if people can't afford to live on your side of town, darling. We complain about the terrible restaurants on Killian Road. I am tired of eating at these same places, and I am too lazy to drive out to harvest. So we've got to create affordable housing so people can work. I hope everybody in Long Creek is listening to this. I just hope everybody can hear us. Not just Long Creek, but all of North Richland County. All right, so please share any affordable housing policy proposals that are currently being considered by the council. I think Reverend Woodley alluded to some work that he's been doing with the council. What do we have to look forward to?
Many of you know, I'm a what you see is what you get.
Busy week.
So straight, no chaser. And I had an audience with it wasn't More Justice, it was the Housing Coalition. And I attended the last meeting, and I walked away limping just a little bit, but it was it's okay because it was for a good cause. And one of the things that I shared with them was that I want Richland County to be a little patient with County Council. And that is, we have 5 brand new council members that took office a year ago. And we are under a major regrouping. We're prioritizing. We just did our first strategic planning session last month, one of which had not taken place, I think, since 2009, maybe. So that's huge. So I want Richland County to be, the citizens to be patient with us as we are really putting things in place. We're putting things in place where it makes so that we can step out there and support causes such as housing and other things that are directly correlated to our strategic plan. So right now, I'll be fine with saying that we don't have anything that we're currently working on. We have asked, I sit on the Development and Services Committee, and we have asked our staff to look at creating ordinance and to research it. And we're still researching, and ... I'll say it like that. But it is a new year. We have our first Development Services Committee meeting next week. And I'm sure that this will be something that now we can talk about a little bit more intelligently. But I want to see, I would love to see, and this is Councilwoman Gretchen Barron talking, not talking for Richland County at all. But what I would love to see as a council member is that we could have an organization here in Richland County that would be willing to step up, that we could support both in policy and financially. Richland County is not in the business of, we can create a housing trust, but to manage and run a housing trust, that's not realistic. But I believe that what we can do is support an organization to be able to get this work done like they're doing in Greenville. And so that I'll stop right there.
All right, so you can support a housing trust, not manage it. At this time, we will take questions from those who are watching, but I want each of you, in no particular order, to just give me a summation, some action steps, because we all realize that you all are in the thick of this labor. You're working diligently to fight for residents across the state. And we all need action items. If you could just quickly just sum it up. Tiffany's nodding. Tiffany, what do we need to do to help our county council to help form a housing fund, perhaps in Richland County? What do we need to do?
I think Gretchen said, we shouldn't be doing it. I agree wholeheartedly. Let's be honest, governments are bureaucratic, right? They're just are in nature. Even the best run ones are bureaucratic. And so what makes us special, what makes us have the ability to be as successful as we have been, is we're very entrepreneurial. And you can't have both. You can't have a government ran entrepreneurial agency. And so, as I said before, one of our biggest successes is that it was a community effort. It wasn't led by strictly the government. The city, although provided funding, and we are gracious for that, but there was other organizations who came to the table as well. And so I agree with Gretchen and the idea that, you need to look outside just the government as it relates to creating, this organization. And I also say we need to have the research. That's one thing that we did is way before, years before the Greenville Housing Fund was created, they did research to understand what was needed. Not only, okay, we all know affordable housing is needed, right? So that's easy. But what type of affordable housing? What does that mean? What type of projects? And so now we have a very clear strategic plan, and we need, this many smaller units, this many middle market, and this many large complexes to fit the need of the community. And so I do think that maybe there's some groundwork that the communities need to do with understanding really the situation, and then being able to project where it's going to be. And so we, just like Richland we're growing, Greenville's growing astronomically. We have tons of people coming in from all over. And a lot of the times we have people coming in from, more northern states. And so the housing costs at $300,000, just like you have, doesn't seem that big of a deal for them. Well, for South Carolinians like myself, that's a huge deal. And so we're struggling with that. And so, but for us to understand what that looks like, and how to manage it. And that also goes with NIMBYism. We struggle with that too. And so we have to work with, the county and the city to create some parameters to make that easy. And, you want to manage, people who've been living there, and that's their community, and they should have some ownership over that. But on the other hand, we need people to have a house. And so how do you manage that so that it makes sense for everybody? And so one of the struggles we have is people love single family dwellings. People want houses instead of more of these multi-complex units. And so what that means is that the density is not as much as we need it in certain areas of town. And so we struggle with that because people think density brings, crime and that type of thing, where the studies show that is not the case at all. But what we do is try to educate. Education is important. And that's kind of where our coalition does, is help educate. We bring in as many organizations as possible to say, hey, here's what affordable housing really means. Here's what workforce housing really means. It is not people not working. It is people who are your nurses and your, people who work at the hospitals, and teachers and police officers and people at your retail stores and people at your, restaurants, and the people you interact with every single day in your community. So I would say, for just to sum it up, for Richland, kind of take a step back, get your stakeholders together, do some studies to understand what the needs are. And so then that way you'll be way more prepared to be successful when you start up your housing trust fund.
Tiffany, I took 5 takeaways from you. That was phenomenal. We need our community to step up. That's number 1. We need to do the research. I think Councilwoman Barron said they're already doing that research to understand what the needs are in Richland County. Number 3, we've got to project locations. A lot of people in the northern part of the country, of the county, are going to say, okay, we have enough houses. But there are other parts of the county where we could potentially put these houses. Number 4, we've got to educate the community so that we have less of this hold up, not in my backyard conversation. And number 5, we've got to get our stakeholders together. Every business owner, the Columbia Chamber of Commerce, the Chamber of Commerce, and any other organization that works to grow and encourage business, they obviously want people around that are going to be able to work at their businesses. Recently, we all struggled with Starbucks closing so early or opening so late because they don't have enough staff. Well, people can't afford to live nearby because the houses are $380,000 and the price keeps going up. Thank you for that, Tiffany. I have done my homework and I've taken my notes. All right, Sue, what's your call to action? What are our action steps? And don't feel obligated to list out 5 or 6 like Tiffany. I mean, that was really phenomenal. Just, what do we need to do?
Well, nobody's ever accused me of not having lots of marching orders for people, so that's not a problem. And Tiffany, I do admire how Greenville has always come together. And I think that that's something that does not always happen in the Midlands area that we really need to be working on. And, and when we're looking at and I apologize to to Councilwoman Barron, I do agree, NIMBY is present here. I just don't want to be accusing anybody who may be watching of anything, but there's no doubt that there is, but there's also gentrification as well. You know, Greenville's gorgeous, but we also know that people get displaced. So when thinking about that, we need to be also balancing as we're working with communities to make sure they have a voice as well. Because yes, they want more, people want more housing. They want quality housing and affordable housing, but we shouldn't be breaking up neighborhoods or displacing people because we're moving folks to areas so that others can move in. So I think we have to also recognize that. The county has, absolutely needs to be stepping up. The city needs to be stepping up. The state needs to be stepping up and looking at our laws and looking at, there's wonderful legislation that gets introduced about inclusivity and how housing gets put together, and it gets totally ignored. So we need to be talking to not just our, putting all the burden on county council, but we also need to be putting the burden on our state leaders. There's also national bills and national things that are going on right now that we should not be ignoring. Build Back Better has $25 billion in resources for both building affordable housing and also to be increasing vouchers so that if housing that's being built is not affordable for someone, they're going to be getting the subsidies and the assistance that they need that meet where they are. And we need to be ensuring that those pieces of legislation do not get ignored and do not get dropped in the federal legislation. I will tell you there's an opportunity on Wednesday. We're having a party with a purpose. We're having one of our neighbors from Georgia coming up with a bus so that we can be educating folks in Richland County, educating leadership. And it's going to be at our office in our parking lot and in front of our office, 1518 Washington Street. So people can learn about opportunities to be voicing and understanding what Build Back Better can do and how we can be advocates both on a state level and a national level. So please join us. You can go to our Facebook page at South Carolina Appleseed to get all the specifics. We're doing it in Charleston as well. But it takes all of us coming together on a local, state, and national level. And it's a lot of work. And we can't say, well, it's too much work. I don't have time for this. These are our neighbors. This is our community, and More Justice is doing a yeoman's job in bringing folks in Richland County together. I'm so proud of what they're doing, and I want us all to be supporting everything that they're doing. And also, in addition to that, speaking up on a state and national level.
Thank you, Sue. Sue, my takeaways from you, we need to continue to hard press the South Carolina lawmakers. We've got to get good legislation passed. That means my team, the Richland County Democrats, we've got to use our 149 precincts, that leadership, to really bring in more people to educate them on what's going on so that we can then really impact, make an impact at the State House. So thank you for that. And you're right, Greenville is gorgeous. And Richland County can be just as beautiful. And we're counting on our 5 new council people. We're counting on this beautification of Richland County, and the infrastructure that comes with it has to be affordable housing so that people can work and we can continue to grow. All right, Party with a Purpose on Washington Street. Got it. I hope everyone goes to the South Carolina, is it the Appleseed Justice Center?
Appleseed Legal Justice Center.
Appleseed Legal Justice Center. Go there, join us, help us, and let's keep fighting on. Gretchen, do you want to give us our marching orders, ma'am?
So several of my points were taken, but as your local elected official, I want to tell you this. Richland County is the capital county, and it's time for us to get in a position to lead this county. And I've said it many times that Richland County should be at the head of the table, and the 7 municipalities should be around the table. And I believe that we're well on our way to doing that. But how do we do that? We do that by electing people and putting people in office. And then when we elect them and put them in office, we need to support them and hold them accountable. Because so very often I'm learning now that I saw a lot of people when I was campaigning, and they were campaigning, but I don't see them anymore. I don't see them in the community. And so we've got to hold people accountable so that when we make policies with people who we come in contact with at the forefront of our decision. So now the people of, Long Creek is my filter. I have a conversation that I remember having with Diaska and said, okay, no, that's not what they need over there, but they need this. The other thing is attend these county council meetings. We are open. You can come and speak before us. And that is a little known tip. I don't think people take advantage of that. And I'll give you an example. A gentleman came and spoke to us about a particular issue. On Tuesday, it heightened my sense, and then I experienced it personally yesterday. So now I called on yesterday to the county administrator and said, do you remember this gentleman that spoke? Well, I have pictures, I have things. Let's start to work towards to address this. So sign up to come and speak to county council, and let us use your 2 minutes as your voice, as your amplifier to make sure that we keep affordable housing and workforce housing in front. And then lastly, I'll say this. I'm a big Airbnb fan. I love to stay in those. But this is the other thing. We have blight, we have abandoned buildings. And for those of you who may be on today live or will watch this in the replay, you have resources. Buy these buildings, fix them, and rent them back to the people here. Not just to, for people like me who want to travel. No, we need houses. And what I'm seeing now in Richland County is that we have more Airbnb properties than we do workforce housing. That's a challenge. Do we need both? Yes. But if you see it and you have the means, join in and get behind a organization such as More Justice and the other organizations that are here that are pushing this forward. Because if we do not, I can't do this work without the support of you. And I need your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Gretchen. Before we hear the marching orders from Reverend Woodley, I wanted to, we have a question from Anna Lane. She's with the Valley State Park Precinct, Gretchen Barron. This is sort of directed toward you, I think. She wants to know about the letter she received from the county about rezoning. Could you talk about the letter and exactly what is going on, what we need to be aware of?
Okay, so you probably right about now you're receiving 2 letters. And one, if you're being rezoned, many of you may remember a couple of months ago, we were having we were talking about our land development code rewrite maps. Well, right now they're going through, and at this point, if your property is going to be rezoned, I also received one of those letters. And so if your property is going to be rezoned, the county is letting you know that instead of, like for me, instead of going to RU, which is rural, I am going to RS3. What that says is that a lot of our property in the Blythewood area, in the Northeast area, was considered rural. We're doing away with the rural language, and now it is lots of residential. You may even have received something that says now you're rural to suburbs. And that's all it's saying. As of right now, it is what I'm told, that it's not impacting your taxes at all. It's a classification that you're now being classified in a different area. So, and this happens every 10 years that we have to look at our land, our land code development rewrite. And this is just that time of year as it comes with growth. Hey, Blythewood is not rural anymore, y'all. We're suburbs. We're subdivisions. So, and that's all it is.
Well, I just want to make sure so that I have it recorded on this video. You did say that our taxes will not increase because of this change.
That is what I'm told. But I will also say that when I told my husband that, he said, yeah, right.
Like your husband, I'm saying, oh my God, something's gonna happen. So, but thank you for that, and thank you for that question, Reverend Anna Lane. We appreciate your question. All right, our marching orders from Pastor Woodley, please.
Again, thank you so much. I would say that a lot of the statements and sentiments have already been echoed. All I'm going to do is just come right alongside of them. But I would say I would think about the designation of the late Representative John Lewis, who also happened to be clergy, by the way. But he was known as the voice of conscience to the Congress and to his fellow constituents. And I would say that, more justice. Again, our efforts are to work alongside of local and state government. But we are the voice of conscience. At least we desire to be the voice of conscience. The grassroots that we are an organization, again, of 33 congregations that are diverse, interfaith, diverse in ethnic, cultural, geographical. I'm also a resident of Blythewood, and many of our pastors and congregants live all throughout the Midlands. And so, I would say, our task, Councilwoman Barron, and we're sorry you left there limping that day, but sometimes, it'll heal. It's all good. But our task is really to hold our law enforcement and accountable to what they say that they're running for. And so I'm saying the same thing you're saying. Individuals need to attend these county council meetings. Tiffany mentioned that we need to make sure that we get community engagement. Well, more justice is community engagement. All right. We have I sit on the Housing Steering Committee, and so we're doing our best to do the research as well, so we can work with county council to help get the research in case they don't have the hands, the arms, the feet to do that. We don't mind doing that. Matter of fact, we already do that, which is why when we come to county council, we already have the statistics that back up a lot of the initiatives that we so fervently want to push forward. And so, that community base is who we are. And what can we say to any of you? We just say, look, our date is coming, just as Sue mentioned, the Party with a Purpose is coming up. We're having our Nehemiah Assembly action coming up on April 4th at 6 p.m. At the Convention Center. We're best because we have the voices. Pre-pandemic, we would reach anywhere over 1,700 individuals gathering at these assemblies. And we would invite all of our those who are in office to attend. And it may have been tough, but we give them tough ask, and we ask for commitments to say, listen, this is what we need you to do. Will you do it? And what can we help you do that with? These are your constituents, people who voted and put you in office. And so housing is a major initiative. We all have echoed that sentiment. I can't state enough how important it is. And I think it was said best. It's not about individuals. These are people who are working every single day, who just do not have the income to match what the housing market is asking for these days. Tiffany, I'm a transplant from New York, New Jersey area. And so I know the cost is high. And here, some individuals are saying, oh, well, it doesn't cost as much. But when you're making $15 to $18 an hour and you need more than 30% of your income to meet a mortgage or rent, you end up just like the young lady having to sleep in your car. So community, let's come together, let's rally together, faith organizations along with our local government, and we need to hold our state as well into accountability too. So that's my marching orders. I'm gonna leave with this. If not now, when? We've heard that said many of times. John F. Kennedy said it. It was borrowed from President Reagan said it. It was really borrowed from someone else, but I'll leave you, if not now, when? When are we going to get this done? That's mine. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pastor Woodley. Before I turn it back over to the North Richland Democrat co-chairs to close us out, I do want to let Gretchen know that I got a text message that says that someone else has the same sentiment as your husband. So all eyes are on County Council. I've had a fine time with you all today. I hope we've educated the community. We're going to keep the video up so that others can watch it later. You all were a superstar panel. Again, North Richland is known for doing excellent programming every quarter, and I am really blown away by all of the work that you all are doing. So I feel so privileged to have talked with you all this morning, and thank you for spending your Saturday morning with us.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And thank you all. I'm going to turn things over in a minute to Ramona for the final comments, but let me just say again, thank you to each of the panelists and to you, Deaska, for an amazing moderation of the discussion. This has been live on Facebook. It will be, there will be a link, and in our past experiences, as many people do watch afterwards, because this has been so informative. And yeah, our goal is to, as you said, Reverend Woodley, to elect more people of conscience, people like you, Councilwoman Barron, and certainly people like John Lewis. And there's so many people out there who could lead the way on solving these problems. So the other thing that I live by is if you ever see a problem like affordable housing, never assume that somebody else is doing the work. Always take it on, do what you can to address it, build teams, build partnerships, build coalitions, and pretty soon we'll get the action that we need. So for our final closing, Ramona, how about finishing the meeting?
All right. I will be brief. Once again, thank you all for the insight, the information, and most of all for being the foot soldiers in this very, very important work. And I think Reverend Woodley said it best when he said, if not now, when? We've got a long list of marching orders. There is a spot for everyone to take up the mantle. And so we hope that you will join us here in the North Richland Dems. Spread the word, share the video. It will be up on our site. And we appreciate you for taking out time this Saturday morning to join us. And with that, be well.